Let's talk about the best player in baseball this season so far. And a guy that I want to make the argument for being just the best player in baseball in general, that's Mookie Betts. So he has started the year through his first 5 games, going 11 for 18. That's a 611 batting average with 4 home runs, 10 RBIs, 9 runs scored. We talk about WRC plus a lot at Just Baseball, which is weighted runs created plus, measures hitters on a league average of 100. It's 5 games, but Mookie Betts WRC plus is 379, which means he's 279% better than your league average hitter. Oh, and also he put up a win already in 5 games when it comes to F4. Not to mention, he's looked good at shortstop. How good is this dude?
There's nothing he can't do. I bet if I could put money on it, he'd probably bowl like a 300 or something crazy like that. I don't know if he's ever done such a thing. No, of course. I mean, yeah, he's talented in everything he does. He's an absolute athlete. That's, what allowed him to go from right field back to the dirt on the infield when he was as a minor leaguer, but then to move over to play shortstop and help the Dodgers out in that way. And again, sure, maybe it's only league average defense, but to have that kind of ability at his age, that's the other thing too, is he's not one of those young players in the game that can adjust and evolve at a new position. But for him to be doing that at this age, I think it helps too that you got Shohei Ohtani hitting behind you in the lineup. Hey, look, I think if you or I were batting in front of Shohei Ohtani, we'd at least have an OPS plus of like 101, 102. So let's give ourselves a little credit as well.
Trust me, if you watch me hit back in high school, I would not have an OPS plus of 101, no matter who's hitting behind me, in front of me. No, I would get set down in strikes every single time. But Mookie Betts to do what not only he's done, this year, it's short sample size, whatever, but to look at his career, I was looking at the F4 leaderboards, and I kind of went year by year throughout his career. So you look at since 2015, and whenever I did this in the past, Mike Trout would always be the league leader in wins above replacement. And now that changed. If you look at from 2015 through last season, Mookie Betts now leads all of baseball in F4. And 2015 was the second year of his career. So now he's at 56.5 as his F4 since then. Mike Trout 56.1. And it took last season where Betts had an 8-win season and Trout got hurt, had a 3-win season for him to take that over. But it's just the consistency that Mookie Betts has where he's pretty much always, in almost every season he's played, a top 5 player in baseball. And he might not always be the best player. Last year, Acuna was slightly better when it came to F4, and obviously the 40-70, made him stand out as the best player in the game. But I think about it, if I was a GM, is there a better, more consistent player you can say, all right, I know he's going to be on the field. I know he's going to hit me home runs. I know he's going to play me great defense. Now, wherever I put him, apparently, even shortstop, it just seems like in some ways we don't appreciate Mookie Betts enough for being right at the top of the league for now a decade.
It's true. And he posts, right? Other than his second year in LA in 2021, where he was limited to 122 games. He's out there. He's durable, right? Like his game isn't based on any one facet. Like you said, he's very flexible. Like he can do a lot of those things really well. So just going out there and playing, even if he's not 100%, which we know most ball players aren't over the course of that 162 game marathon. So he just has that skill set that's amazing. And, you can count on him for, close to 20 stolen bases. He hasn't stolen 20, since 2018, but 16, 10, 10, 12, 14, hasn't gotten one yet this year. He's going to get some of those numbers, with the pitchers that Ohtani and Freeman are going to end up seeing over the course of a season. So he just does everything really well. And as you said, adding in that extra tool in his toolbox to be able to play middle infield the way he's done, despite the fact that, he is a 6-time Silver Slugger award winner in right field and a 6-time Gold Glove award winner in right field. It's absolutely impressive. It's an invaluable skill that he has, that flexibility at those elite positions.
And I know you were telling me before we hit record that he was your MVP pick this year. And I think the narrative is already kind of forming for him. Granted, he's got 2 guys on his team that could take some MVP votes, and Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani. Both Ohtani not pitching this year, you just look at a team in the Dodgers that might win who knows how many games. Maybe they win 110 this year and really, kind of push the envelope. But what Betts is going to open up for that team to be the starting shortstop, to now allow them to, okay, they have maybe some questions at how they're going to end up filling second base, but that's a lot easier to fill than shortstop. And so he just has opened up a world of possibilities for them throughout this season while still producing at this ridiculous level offensively. He's not going to hit over 600 all year, but why exactly did you pick Mookie Betts to win the MVP this season?
Well, he's a perennial candidate, right? So immediately right off the bat, you're going to say, well, he's going to be in my top 5 guys. But I think it really has a lot to do with, him playing shortstop early on in the season and filling that hole, which I think is so incredibly valuable. And it's a story, right? Some of being an MVP has to do with the story that you tell over the course of the season rather than just your statistics. You think about it last year with a guy like Bryce Harper, where, had he been eligible to play, or healthy to play, really, early on in the season, going from the outfield to first base for the first time in his career like that. We just don't see outfielders transition successfully to first base. Like, that's impressive. Like, that's a story right there. That is a commitment, to win and putting your team over everything else. And so I think Betts doing that has kind of leveled the playing field a little bit. And sure, it's hard when you've got other superstars around you like Ohtani and Freeman, but we know Ohtani is just going to be a DH, so it's going to take something remarkable out of him, 50 home runs really to grab some of those MVP votes. Freeman is always really super consistent, but this new kind of dynamic with Betts playing shortstop, I think just is really speaks to the story of being a valuable player, because that's something that Fangraphs wins above replacement, Baseball Reference isn't going to be able to calculate. So it's something that you can't see, that I think a lot of voters like myself in the BBWAA, we like those kind of things, and going back to what you started off by saying, talking about Mike Trout, to your credit, if you look at Baseball Reference, if you look at B-WAR, going back to 2015, that first year that Betts came on the scene. So we're discounting a little bit of Trout's first few years, but since 2015, no player in baseball has more seasons of 5 wins above replacement than Mookie Betts. He's got 7, and you got Mike Trout with 6, and then a pair of Cardinals guys who have not looked so great on the other end against the Dodgers in Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. So yeah, Mookie Betts back in that conversation as best player of his generation. He still has some room to make up, and I think it's still Mike Trout as that guy. But if you're talking about the best player in the game right now, it starts and stops with Mookie Betts.
I think it might end up becoming one of those things where, we're going to look at, for basketball, you look at MJ versus LeBron, and obviously that's a debate that's, probably the most popular debate in sports history in itself. But now it's getting to the point with LeBron James where it's like, all right, the length of career, where it's like best career, MJ might be best player. And it might be the same type of thing with Mike Trout. Like that prime of Mike Trout, you kind of can't touch it. His height was better than Mookie Betts, but Mookie Betts could stay at this level for 5 more seasons and continue to be right up there as one of the best players in baseball. And when we look at the end of his career, I mean, Betts has a chance to be a really special inner circle Hall of Famer. I want to kind of close this conversation looking at the next 5 years here. Obviously, Acuna is right there with him and just won the MVP and will be a contender again this year. What other players do you see this next 5-year window that can kind of potentially knock Betts off that mantle that he might have grabbed from Mike Trout now?
Yeah, I think it's hard for some of those young guys to do it because you need a little bit of a resume. With Acuna Jr., he certainly has to be one of the favorites. I am concerned about the injuries, right, and the impact of all those stolen bases. From the players that I've talked to, one of the reasons why I think stolen bases were down simply had to do with the wear and tear it takes to steal a base, slide into the bag, the tag that's made, etc. So we'll keep an eye on that with Acuna Jr. Julio Rodriguez, he's only in his 3rd year. Bobby Witt Jr. only in his 3rd year. Same with Adley Rutschman. So those are all like kind of the new kids on the scene that are going to be trying to make a name for themselves. But I think they still have another year or 2. I think it's probably even more like 2 years before they can really kind of put their stamp on things in the generation that kind of overlaps the generation of the Trout, Arenado, Goldschmidt, and Betts. So those are 2 of the top young, or 3 or 4 of the top young names that are going to be trying to really battle for that crown.
I agree for sure. And I think, Juan Soto, is another one clearly, but he doesn't have the defensive impact. Now he's looked pretty good in this first series, but still, Mookie Betts to me kind of stands out above the rest. And even if one of those guys, if J-Rod this season ends up winning the AL MVP, you're still going to want to see him do that again. And I think that's the thing that Betts has that no one else does. It's just this long line of consistency that never seems to stop. He's just always a effective, productive player.
Yeah, Aaron Judge, of course. I think he's
Yeah.
in the conversation as an also ran, right, and he can probably do a lot to help himself out in the latter parts of his career. But nevertheless, I mean, going. Do you like the Jaws? Do you like Jaws as a statistic to look at a player's Hall of Fame credentials? Is that a
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I think that's a good statistic to look at. Look at the peak. Yeah.
Yeah, and so for Betts, he's the ninth greatest right fielder of all time. And you think about some of the greatest power hitters of all time playing right field. I think Trout's the third greatest center fielder at that point. So again, a lot of that has to do with the position and the other guys. But again, that gives you an idea. If you say, has Mookie Betts actually been that good? Yeah, he has. I know he's been on the coast in Boston, and so the Boston fans are gonna pump him up when he's one of their guys. And now he's on the West Coast with the Dodgers. Dodgers fans are going to be nice and loud and pump them up. But if you quiet that noise and really just dig into the numbers, we are talking about one of the greatest players of all time, and certainly the greatest of his generation.
Who has a lot of time left in this game, which is awesome to see here.